Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm McSnazzi and today we are back in Planet Zoo once again. We're back for our 11th episode in the Timber Gorge series, and in this episode we're going to do probably the biggest and most ambitious build I've done so far. Today we are building a reptile house, but not just a reptile house to house exhibits. We're going to also put a couple animal enclosures inside. So it's going to be quite a big build, and I think it turns out really well in the end. Now, I wasn't quite sure how I wanted the reptile house to look in general. We haven't really built with any of these classical sort of theme pieces, these brick pieces, so I thought we'd sort of bring this. I think it's sort of a general look of how these reptile houses look in real life. Is there sort of these like brick buildings with maybe a little bit of molding on them, and that's what we really end up going with here. And I knew I wanted to do sort of like a glass greenhouse sort of ceiling because it just seems natural to do for these reptile houses. Get that natural sunlight coming in for the animals that are inside, along with the exhibit animals as well. So that's what we go for here. I think it turns out really nice. A lot of the episode is sort of the interior building, but I wanted to start off with a little bit of how we made and outlined the reptile house in general, as I show plopping down the exhibits there. But the design sort of changes a bit. We start off like this, but it ends up being actually a little too small for sort of the plans I wanted to do here. I had a really big idea ever since we started this park of what I kind of wanted to do the reptile house with, and I knew we'd have to, get a lot more of the foundations of the park before I could put down the reptile house. But I wanted to have it be really big and grand, not like super big, not unrealistically big, and it may be a little too big here, but I like how it turns out. But I wanted to fit some regular animals that have enclosures in it within the whole exhibit thing. I didn't want it to just be only exhibits in there because that's kind of boring, it's just a building that you're housing these small little animal things. And I kind of like the idea of having these indoor animal exhibits for like sort of the tropical animals that like a little bit of a warmer climate. They'll probably enjoy it in here. And in real life, when I've been to a few reptile houses, I usually see crocs and other animals in these reptile houses. So I kind of wanted to go for that feeling here. And I really like that idea in general, so that's what I really want to do here. And I haven't really seen anyone else do this within the Planet Zoo community, so I think this is one of the more ambitious builds we've done, and I think it's a great idea to sort of fit in the more attractive, like bigger animals where you can have fun building the exhibits while also making the reptile house with these little exhibit cubes here. And we're going to show a little bit of how you do the exhibit cubes here. I know I haven't talked a lot about what's on screen, but I'll start doing it now. I show the first time I'm fiddling around with these exhibits, and they're really cool. You can do a lot with these. You can customize them, put all these extra plants and objects in there along with these misters, and you can close some of the windows or put these like 3D sort of facades on them, or facades. So it really lets you customize it a lot, and I really like that about these because I don't think a lot of people use these exhibits too much because they're not as exciting as putting down really customizable environments that we do within the game. And I guess you can clip things into these exhibits to make them a little more lively and customizable, but I feel like that's a waste, I don't think I've seen anyone do that either, so I just knew it was something they were talking about when they were doing the beta. But here we're going to start doing a little bit more of this roof. I cut out a lot of the roof making because I think it's pretty straightforward. We just stick with the same style that we have on the front here that we end up with. And I think the front looks really nice. I really like the style of this building. I think it looks grand and really nice. So I really like what we did there. And this sort of almost ends what we did on the first day of building. I built this building within a few days of recording time, and really it's probably the longest build, even longer than the buffalo enclosure. But after building on the first day, I thought about it, and I thought that we kind of need to make it a little bigger and maybe get rid of some of the exhibits on the one side. And we ended up doing it here, and I'll show it in a second as we sort of clean up this front area, and we're going to put something there as well later on. But I really wanted to have more animals in here. I really wanted to fit the crocodiles in here because I sort of had that idea of that's the animal I wanted to put in general. And really, the crocodiles did not have enough room to fit in that middle sort of habitat area that we've already outlined. So I end up just extending the other side, other than this exhibit side, taking all the exhibits out, which we'll show in a second. And I'm gonna extend it, and that's where we're gonna put the crocodiles, and they'll have a lot of nice space to move around in. And we end up taking out this middle area too because it ends up being too small for either one of these animals having half of this thing. So we really need to extend the space. So what we end up doing is we make this middle area one exhibit for the Komodo dragons. I was going to put Komodo dragons and tortoises in there, but we're going to make the middle one for the Komodo dragons, and the side that we're extending right now, we're going to put the saltwater crocs right in there, and it's going to look really nice. Now I have sort of this grand plan. I still want to put tortoises in the zoo because I love tortoises, they're so cool. So there's two types of tortoises in the game, so I'm thinking we make sort of this little plaza off the back of this reptile house where we add a couple more houses. I think we're going to add an insect house where we can put just exhibits in there, just the block exhibits. It's going to be a lot smaller than this, and we're going to put the spiders and all those different insects and the scorpions that we can put in there, because we want to try and fit all these exhibits that we can since we have the room. And I think we'll also build a tortoise house in the back there where we can house both the tortoise breeds in there, because I think that's a pretty practical thing to do with tortoises, especially in sort of the climate that we're going for here with the super woodsy sort of tundra-y kind of feel. I think it would be very practical to have a tortoise house, and it'll just be fun because then we can have the tortoises in the zoo in general without having to build them a really small outdoor enclosure, because that's going to be pretty underwhelming. So we can build them sort of their own little greenhouse where we can make it the tortoise house and, you know, brand it and make it look all cool and customizable. And that way we can have a nice little sort of plaza off of this reptile house where we have that. We have the insect house, and we definitely build some more staff areas because the staff need some zookeeper huts around here in order to feed these animals that are around. And we'll just extend off of there, you know. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get some DLC for like Butterfly House or something of that sorts. I'm sure Frontier will come out with DLC. They did a lot of that in Planet Coaster. I'm excited to see what it is. I'm really hoping for, I know I haven't talked a lot about this on the channel, but I'm hoping for an Arctic DLC where we get penguins or something, because I think that would be a really neat animal to have in the game and play with. So here we're gonna continue working on the Komodo exhibit now. Now that we've sort of extended their space, we'd have a lot of room for them in here. And we're just going to do a little bit of terrain painting around here. And we end up building this rock sort of natural structure around that area where the zookeeper comes in. I think it's just something you would see. I think it's realistic that you'll have sort of this man-made rock structure, probably made out of fake rocks, but that the zookeeper can walk in so they can get into the Komodo exhibit, because this won't be open like this for the guests. So here I'm going to let it play for a little bit while we flesh out the Komodo exhibit, and I will come back when we're doing something else. Alright, we're back and we're doing the crocodile exhibit now. Now we went with the saltwater crocodile here for this enclosure and for this reptile house. And I think the exhibit for the croc turns out well in the end. We do a lot of water space because they do really enjoy a lot of water space. And we really build a big area for them here. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. But it was sort of a struggle to get the crocs to fit into this sort of secluded extended area. We end up going with that sort of dock that guests will walk out to look at the crocs in, and I think that turns out really nice. We end up putting rocks over all that brick wall over here for the crocodiles because I don't want them necessarily living next to brick wall. I don't think that's super natural, and I don't really like that feel. So we end up covering the whole wall with tropical rocks, and I cut out most of that because there's just a lot of copy and pasting of rocks along the wall, but it looks really cool in the end. We do a bit of foliage here too, a lot more than the crocs like. Apparently the crocs really don't like any foliage, but I end up putting a lot in here. And we do end up doing a waterfall as well, just a really small one, not as good as the waterfall that we did for the hippo exhibit. Even though it is really nice. I think it's a nice little thing to have. I think it's something you would have in sort of a reptile house. Here's some running water when you're in there. It just feels like something that would happen in real life, so I think it's a realistic aspect to do. Now, for the Komodos and the crocodiles, they don't really need any hard shelter, apparently, so for both of them, you'll see I don't make them any sort of little house that they can go into for sleeping, etc. I just kind of make these little areas that are a little more heavily foliaged so that they have a place to hide away when they're sleeping. The Komodo's not as much as the Croc. The Croc I kind of make a little area off to the side that I put a lot of vegetation around, so they have sort of a hideaway to sleep. But the Komodos, they just kind of have a little nook within a bunch of palm trees next to that rock thing, as you saw when you saw me building the Komodo habitat there. But I think it turns out well, and the animals seem to be okay with not having hard shelter. But I'll let this crocodile build play, and I'll come back when we're doing something else. And that was a big cut there, and we finished the crocodile exhibit there. We put a lot of foliage around, a lot of rocks along the wall as I was talking about there. And it really starts to clip off of this building. So what we're going to do to kind of cover up all that clipping of the rocks is we're going to put a lot of trees around the outside of that side of the building. And it really goes with the sort of cozy, woodsy sort of zoo we're going for here, which I'm lucky it kind of works out because it helps cover up all those imperfections that we have with the Reptile House. And that's sort of where we're going from here. Now we're going to start putting in some flooring into here. I wanted to do custom flooring, kind of laying it out here. I wanted to show the process, so we're going to show a little bit of this. I cut out most of it, most of the tedious parts of it, but you get to see what we do. You lay down the paths first, and then you sort of go in and put down this custom flooring that you want. It makes it look a lot more uniform, looks a lot better in general. Now this episode will be a lot longer than most of the episodes we do, but I think it's warranted since it is one of the bigger builds that we have done in the park, or in the zoo so far. And it took a lot of recording time to make, and I do cut out a lot of it because a lot of it is tedious work, and it's not necessarily finished yet. We are going to come back and do a little bit more detail work onto the Reptile House. But you know, you're getting a lot of you're getting 2 animals here along with all the exhibits, and I think it just looks great. Here we're going to spruce up the inside here. It's kind of bland so far. I'm thinking we put a lot of these educational screens in here because I think this is one of those places where they'd have a lot of those learning sort of things. And I don't know if you guys noticed at the start of the video there was some tracks in the background when we were building this Reptile House, and that was sort of what I thought episode 11 would be. I thought it would be this transport thing that I am making, and it's just about done, but I kind of just had this big inspiration to build a Reptile House, and I'm glad I went with it because I had just a ton of ideas in my head. And you know, when you have all those ideas, you want to do it. I was also getting a little roadblocked with the track ride, with the transport ride that we were doing, and I realized we're gonna have to make it even bigger than I already made it because this Reptile House is just huge, so we need to have a little more space for the rest of the animals that we're gonna do in the zoo, which is a lot still. We still need to do a lot of the big African animals that take up a ton of space, like giraffes, zebras, elephants, and lions. But here we're gonna start wrapping up the time-lapse portion of the video here. We're gonna finish the roof just about now. We're gonna add the rest of the pieces around this roof, and it stays with most of the shape that you see on the screen now, so there's nothing really much to talk about that. But when you look on the inside when it's done, it looks super nice, lots of natural light coming in, and I think it's a really great structure that we built here. And I will be putting this on the workshop, so after the video you can see the link in the description to the building so that you guys can use this as well in your own park if you'd like to. And I'm going to let the rest of this time-lapse play, and I will meet up back with you guys in a second when we get into the real-time portion where we're going to walk around and look at this Reptile House in first person. Alright, I'm back, guys, and we are back in the first person portion of the video where we're going to show what happened in the end and show kind of where we are. We're kind of by the pond here just to get a little sense, but here is the snake centerpiece you guys saw me do. This is the only reptile statue I could find in the game, so I had to make a little bit of a fountain out of it, but I changed the sign, I changed some of the details on the building. I think it looks great. We did a lot of detail work off camera, but look at this. This is the shot when you first come in. We did details on the walls here, added some plants because this is going to be like a climate controlled environment. There's going to be a lot lot of tropical plants in here just so you can kind of see them. And it looks great. And here's the Komodo dragon exhibit, and I'm really happy with how everything turned out. Everything in here is super custom. It's done all with a bunch of small pieces, but it was worth the time it took to make. And the Komodo dragons just look great. Look at them. You can see the scales. A lot of detail on these the models for the Komodos, and I think they look great. But here are the exhibits animals that we did. The first one here is the poison dart tree frog, I believe. And they're super small. We see those little guys here, and I don't find all the animals here, but I show them all in the end when we do some glam shots. And there's the Antillean iguana, the Gia monster right in this exhibit. That is the not sure, that is the Goliath frog in there, and in there is the boa constrictor. So those are all the exhibit animals, and in the glam shots in the end I'll go back and show them each individually. But yeah, we're just gonna walk over to the other side here. This is the Saltwater Croc exhibit that we made. I think it looks super good. Here's the little door that we put on this rock area, make it look like a little bit of a backstage sort of staff entrance area, which it really is. But here is the Saltwater Croc. We put rocks all along the walls so it looks super natural, and there's the crocodile hanging out by the waterfall. He seems to like hanging out right by that waterfall. And I'm just really happy with how everything turns out. Everything came together so nicely. There's a ton of detail in here. There's still more to do on this building in general, but we'll do that off camera and I'll show you guys in later episodes. But here's the Croc's sleeping area. They get a lot of cover behind that vegetation there. But yeah, here we're gonna just jump into some glam shots, and I really want to thank everyone for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I hope this was helpful for you guys. I will put the workshop link down in the description as well, so if you want to put this in your own park, you can. And I'm going to start doing that a little more now. But thank you guys for all the support. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Stay tuned on the channel for more videos like this as we're building up the Timber Gorge Zoo, and everything's just looking better and better every episode. Well, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the last minute here. We're just going to show some glam shots of all the exhibit animals. But thank you guys, and I'll see you next time.